Hi, good morning to all of you. It's a brand new week and it's nice to see you once again on the show. This is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. It's a channel that comes to you with policy analysis, with conversations and occasional business stories. But right now, at 8:15 in the morning, we come to you with the news behind the news. We pick up headlines that we think are important and analyze them for you and wait for comments to come in. And this time, my co-anchors are Saloni, welcome Saloni, and Hussaina, welcome Hussaina. It's good to have both of you here. And among the three of us, we're going to discuss the following titles that are there on your screen. The first one is on the first 100 days of Trump and how disastrous they've been. The second one is a very interesting story on oil prices and how OPEC, some key OPEC members have decided to increase production. And the third one is a story which is about the EU and the FTA that both have been negotiating for some time. But let's take the first story first. The first 100 days of Trump, when Trump came in, he said, I will change everything. MAGA, make America great again. But everything that has happened in the last 100 years, Trump does not seem to have the Midas touch of converting dross to gold. He seems to have the quality of turning gold to dross once again. The stock markets have tumbled. Look at the charts. The charts will tell you how payrolls have declined, which means salaries have gone down. The average income that people get has gone down. And look at the next chart, which shows that unemployment is increasing. And the last 6 months, manufacturing has remained low. Of course, it was low for some time, not as high as some years ago. But right now, in Trump's time, it remains more subdued. When markets are subdued, when jobs are few, when salaries decline, and the stock markets are down, I don't think that's the definition of making America great again. And then Trump has a marvelous way of making Kissinger seem right. Remember Kissinger's famous saying? It's dangerous to have America as your enemy, but to have America as your friend can be fatal. India realized that when it was slapped with huge tariffs and asked not to purchase Russian oil. And now South Korea is also beginning to realize that. Japan too realized it in the past. The closest friends are the ones that seem to be the worst affected. Well, that's Trump. Can one stop Trump? No. He still has his base intact. And so he thinks he can do whatever he wants. The only hope is that the courts will bring him down. If that doesn't happen, the economy will bring him down. Let's see. And that takes us to the next story. And the next story is equally interesting. It's a story on oil prices. Come in, Saloni.
Yes, sir. So, the OPEC has announced plans to increase oil production from the next month, from October, that is. This remarkable move has come at a time when oil prices are sliding and there are concerns about oversupply. The production will be increased by 137,000 barrels per day from October 2025. This move is viewed as an effort to secure a larger share of the global crude market. The eight countries which are the part of OPEC Plus and they are known as the voluntary eight. Those countries are Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, UAE, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria, and Oman. So, to give a little bit of background, historically, the wider OPEC Plus group, which includes the 12 nation group and its allies, had agreed to output cuts totaling nearly 6 million barrels per day to pop up prices. But since April, the voluntary eight nations have shifted their focus prioritizing market share through a series of production hikes rather than price support. Oil prices have largely hovered between $65 and $70 per barrel this year. The group had already increased output by 2.2 million barrels per day in recent months. And they also said that the new cycle could eventually see up to an additional 1.65 million barrels per day coming onto the market. Sir, it is also notable that the real increase would likely be smaller due to capacity limits and the compensation mechanism, but stressed that market perception often outweighs the actual number of barrels. The coming 3 months are traditionally a weaker demand period for the oil industry, and this period will prove a major test for the alliance. Market watchers are also monitoring geopolitical factors, including Moscow's war in Ukraine and also strained US Russia relations. Sir, I think this move raises a question about unity. Countries like Russia depend on high prices to fund their war machine, while others are willing to test lower prices for market share. What do you think, sir?
Well, Saloni, very interesting story, and I'm glad you raised the story. But remember, in this meeting of the eight, Russia is included. Russia has also agreed to bring down prices, knowing the higher production will bring down prices. Why? I suspect the reason is that America, which is the largest oil producer at the moment, it does not have the largest reserves, but it's producing the largest quantity of oil in the world. America is trying to exploit more oil fields and more gas fields. The cost of production of oil and gas from these incremental fields is was $41 and now is estimated to be around $50. But I mean, by bringing down the prices, they make sure that America cannot produce more oil. In fact, even the oil fields that existed before Trump, the latest ones have a pricing of $41 per barrel, which means they'll be forced to declare losses or shut down, and the banks will have dead assets on the books. I think they've all got together and decided that to teach America not to increase production anymore and destabilize the markets. Remember, the OPEC members have already gone against and jettisoned what is known as a petrodollar. Now they're independent, they can trade in the currencies of each other, effectively bypassing the dollar altogether. This is one more move aimed at containing America. Earlier, America was using this weapon to contain Russia. Now, all of them are combined to contain USA. At least that is what my reasoning tells me. But let's see. Very interesting story. Thank you, Saloni. And that takes me to the third story, which is equally interesting and actually very, very interesting from India's point of view. And that is FTA talks with the EU. Come in, Hussaina.
Yes, sir. So India and the European Union are finally accelerating a long stalled free trade agreement, marking a crucial phase in strategic trade diplomacy. Now, for the first time since February, two top EU officials, Trade Commissioner and an Agricultural Commissioner, are visiting New Delhi this week, heading a significant 30-member delegation to drive negotiations toward a conclusion by year end. Now, so the timing of this visit is very significant. This is the first high level EU visit since February, and it kicks off a dense 5-month diplomatic calendar aimed at concluding the FTA negotiations, which have been going on since 2022. Now, the delegation's arrival signals that both sides are serious about ironing out remaining differences and closing this deal, and especially with India keen to secure concessions on issues like the EU's climate-related trade norms, particularly the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism or CBAM. New Delhi is also closely watching how EU has handled similar concerns which were raised by the United States and is pushing for equivalent flexibilities. So the talk cover key areas like climate, dairy and wine, cars, access to digital markets, intellectual property, and rules of origin. For India, reducing barriers for its services sector is crucial, and for the EU, It's about securing greater access to India's massive consumer market. And as I discussed earlier, so that geopolitical shifts are adding urgency. With supply chains moving away from China and global trade becoming more fragmented, both India and the EU want to diversify their economic partnerships. The US tariff uncertainty is only making this more important and urgent. This FTA isn't just about commerce, sir. It's also about it's more so strategic. The EU is also unveiling a new long-term plan for India this month, which includes cooperation in defense, clean energy, and the Indo-Pacific. So, as Delhi is hosting the EU delegation, the next few days and few months could shape the future of a $120 billion trade relationship. But again, the big question that remains, sir, is will both sides finally close this deal, looking at the fact that there have been delays in the India and EU FTAs?
Well, thank you, Sena. Very interesting story, and the timing is perfect. For the last 8 months, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and his team have been literally chasing and trotting after first the US, camping there for several days, then the UK, camping there for several days, and now it's good that EU is coming to India. Two things have happened. First, Trump forced EU to accept a tariff situation where the US can charge EU goods a higher tariff than EU can charge the US. That has upset many EU members, even though the EU commissioner had already accepted such a deal. That's left a bitter taste in many of the EU members' mouths. Second, suddenly, China happened. India warmed up to China, and Russia, the RIC, has come in, and BRICS is coming in. And EU realizes that if they don't clinch a deal, they'll be marginalized. They've got marginalized by the US, they'll get marginalized from the rest of the world as well, and BRICS is growing very fast. And so the entire EU delegation comes to India. Of course, two things on the agenda of EU will not be accepted by Delhi. One is dairy products. The EU subsidizes its dairy farms and wants to sell its dairy products to India, and India will not accept the same way as it did not accept with the US proposal. The second part will be access to India's consumer markets for sin goods, the wines and the perfumes. That is a great territory. If India can make more money through taxes by allowing these high priced, high value goods, why not? So, very interesting developments. The automobile market is almost dead to Europe. Germany's Volkswagen, the backbone of the automobile industry, is now going to manufacture military tanks instead because it finds it's losing its market for automobiles. The EU is a huge churn, and India could offer some breathing space for that conglomerate. Thanks, Hussaina. Very, very important story. It was wonderful. And that takes me to the last part, and that is comments and questions. The first, of course, is the question about oil prices. Will oil prices come down? Yes, they will. 70 to 50 is the price range. It'll hover around 50 so that future planned oil exploration sites are shut down and existing oil exploration sites, which are very expensive, are also curtailed. It is one way the OPEC can make sure that there's some discipline in the market. Remember, Russia, which wants higher prices, has also agreed. And the next question is about what do you call it? The next question is about one second. I'm just trying to figure out. I'm just trying to look at the language. And the next question is about how do you look at the global market situation given the fact that EU is losing market share? Yes, EU is losing market share. ASEAN has come up faster than EU. BRICS is coming up faster than even the ASEAN in terms of percentages, though the base is very small. And there's RCEP, where also these three trade blocs are likely to give EU a run for its money unless EU can come up with favorable deals with large consumer markets like India. There are three large consumer markets in the world: USA, China, and India. And now they look at India and they hope to secure a good deal. And the last question is about USA. Will the US bounce back? You can't bounce back with tariffs. Tariffs eventually make the imposing country lose competitive strengths. When I know I'm protected, I'm not competitive. And that is why the US will lose competitive strength thanks to the tariffs. And please remember, the US is making immigration extremely difficult. America has survived two things. One is a declining birth rate, which the entire Western countries, all the Western countries are witnessing a declining birth rate, including Japan, including China. And the reason why America survived is because it's immigration. And the second thing is, immigrants are always harder workers than native workers. They come there to earn money and they forget everything else and just focus on earning money. That's why in every country, immigrants are harder workers, are more dedicated workers. America is losing that edge also. So with productivity going down, with labor costs going up, and protectionism coming in, America is not going to bounce back again, no matter what Trump says. And that brings me to the end of today's session. Thank you for being with us. It is good to have you. Good to have your comments. And yes, have a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Good luck.